Hey, I'm Coach Austin, and I'm here today to help you break down and understand the metrics monitor on the Aviron rower. This thing can seem very overwhelming, especially if you're just getting into rowing and you have no idea what you're doing. So we're gonna break things down today, explain each part of the metrics monitor, and then we're gonna get into a 5-minute row together where we're gonna be focusing on each little bit of the monitor so we can follow along and learn together. So, breaking things down, we're just gonna start off in the top left-hand corner here. This is just a breakdown summary of a short row that I did. And we can see at the very top left here, starting off with meters. So that's our total distance that we rowed over the course of whatever workout we were doing. Rowing's not measured in miles. Since it's an international sport, it's always been meters that measure how far you go. And just as a general rule of thumb, 1,600 meters is a mile. And every stroke that you take is going to accumulate meters. How many meters? Well, that's going to depend on a few things, and we'll get to that in a bit. What's great about the metrics monitor on the Aviron, though, is it gives you little checkpoints throughout your workout, depending on how long your workout might be, where you might be getting close to 5,000 meters or more. It gives you checkpoints of how long it took you to get to each of these checkpoints here. 500 meters, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, and 5,000. While knowing that is not going to make or break your results or your overall improvements in performance over time, it's still just a good indicator to see at what times you hit certain distances. So in this scenario, it took me about 2 minutes and 25 seconds to hit my first 500 meters over the course of this entire row. And then at the 4-minute 47-second mark, that's when I hit 1,000 meters. And then I got the rest of that after that. To the right of that, you can see the average pace per 500 meters that you were rowing at when you crossed through the benchmark. What's an average pace per 500 meters? We'll talk about that in a bit. But going down from there, in the bottom left, we can just see the total time. So this row, a little over 5 minutes, 5 minutes and 43 seconds. And as soon as you stop rowing, the timer on the metrics monitor will stop for you. Since we're down here at the bottom, we can look at the very bottom and see the different resistance adjustments here on the metrics monitor. Now you can physically touch the screen to make the adjustment, or you can use the arrow keys here, or you can even use the adjustments on your rowing handle itself. One thing to note is when you hit a resistance on the Aviron, you'll notice that it slowly builds the resistance over time to get to whatever number you hit. So it's not an instantaneous adjustment, but you wouldn't want an instantaneous adjustment. You would want to feel the gradual building up of resistance. And of course, it goes all the way up to resistance 16 as well. All right, now moving on to the big chunk in the middle, the watts graph. Watts are a measure of power. As you row harder, you generate more watts. And this graph up here tracks your wattage relatively over time. So for example, you can see here in this bar, this box, it will scroll throughout your workout. So this isn't showing me my entire workout, but mainly just the last couple minutes. We can see here at the very edge, I was rowing at a higher watts, and then I started to reduce my effort a bit and kept it as sustainable and steady as I could before stopping, taking a little break where we can see the graph drop off to 0 before picking it back up and then getting some more watts before setting the handle back down again. Remember that this graph is relative. It's not absolute. There's no actual number here on the side showing you on the y-axis how many watts you rowed, but it's all relative to what you were rowing previously. But numerically, we can see our watts through the current and the average. So with the current watts, as you row, every single stroke, the Aviron is calculating how many watts you're rowing. So each stroke, a number will pop up for your current watts. If you take the next stroke harder, the current watts will go up. If you take the next stroke softer, the current watts will go down. And all of that, all the strokes added together, leads to your average watts. So if your workout is asking you to row consistently for an extended period of time, your goal would be to keep your watts graph as even as you can, compared to if you're doing a workout where you're doing high intensity interval sprints, where you'd row really hard for a little bit and then row softly as a recovery in between. You would see your graph spike up, go down, spike up, and go down. Below the watts graph is the most important metric that you can know with rowing, and that is your pace per 500 meters. Sound familiar? We talked about it a little bit here when we were discussing the meters and the different checkpoints for the meters. With pace per 500 meters, It's essentially telling you at your current rowing intensity how long it's going to take you to row 500 meters. Why 500? I'm not sure exactly who decided it was going to be 500 meters, but it's essentially tracks like you would see on a fitness watch. When you're running and you're looking at your pace per mile, how fast it would take you to run a mile at your current running speed. If you start running faster, the pace goes down as you go faster because you'll cover a mile faster. It's the same thing with rowing, but instead of it being a pace per mile, it's your pace per 500 meters. An even easier way to think about it is if you think about a track, like a track that you run around. A track is 400 meters. So just imagine a timer that was tracking how long it would take you to cover each lap of a track. That's what your pace per 500 is. So as an example, if you're rowing and your pace per 500 says 2 minutes per 500 meter, at that current intensity, it would take you 2 minutes to go 500 meters. But if you started rowing harder with more power, maybe even a faster stroke rate, that might go from a 2-minute pace per 500 to a 1:45 pace per 500. Now the number went down because it went from 2 minutes to 1:45, but that's a faster pace per 500. You're now getting 500 meters faster. Just like a fitness watch, if you started running faster, your pace per 500 might go from a 9-minute, or your pace per mile might go from a 9-minute pace per mile to an 8:30 pace per mile. It might be hard to wrap your head around that now, but it's something that will click more over time, and it is essential for you to know to track your rowing performance and improvements over time. Now here on the metrics monitor, we can see our instantaneous pace per 500. Just like with the watts, with the current watts, each stroke you take, you will output your current pace per 500, and then all of your strokes added together combine to create your average pace per 500. Why does this say 0 right now? Because I'm not rowing. If you're rowing, it will pop up, but if you're not rowing, it'll stay 0, just like with the current watts. Now, if we move over to the right side of the screen, this is where we can see some accessory metrics that can help us out and just give us more info about our entire rowing process. Calories on the top right. Oh, we love to burn calories with rowing. This shows you the total number of calories that you burned throughout the course of your row. So in this case, over the course of this 5-minute row, over a little over 1,000 meters, burned about 48 calories, 48.58 if you want to get really specific, which is cool about the Aviron. From there, you can also see the calories burned per hour. Now that is based off of the last stroke that you took and how powerful that stroke was. So as you start rowing harder, your calories per hour will go up, but if you start rowing softer, the calories per hour will go down. So this is basically based off of the last stroke I took, which was a little tiny soft stroke. So don't confuse the two. Calories burned per hour is very similar to watts, current watts, and current pace per 500, where calories burned just show you the total calories burned. Below that, we can see the output in kilojoules. What is this? Physics class back in science class? Well, kind of. Yeah, kilojoules are a way of calculating power. For example, if we look at the kilojoules per hour, if you wanted to run, let's say, a 100-watt light bulb, just like your standard light bulb, it takes about 360 kilojoules per hour in order to run that for an hour at a time. So that goes to show that over the course of this 5-minute row, I was at a pace of around 299 kilojoules per hour, which wasn't even enough to power a light bulb. Rowing, cycling, and exercise, while it sounds like you're generating a lot of power, it's actually not a ton of electrical power overall. Understanding your output is not extremely essential to your rowing performance over time, and most rowing programs, most rowing workouts are going to be focused not around that. However, workouts specific to the Aviron will focus on that sometimes. And just understand that as you keep rowing, you're generating more kilojoules. And the harder you row, the higher your kilojoules per hour will be. Below that, we can see our strokes and our stroke rate. So looking down below on strokes total, I took 112 strokes over the course of this little over 5-minute row, And then to the right of that, your strokes per minute, SPM. That tells you the rhythm of your rowing, how often you're taking strokes, literally how many strokes per minute you're currently moving at. Now this changes instantaneously. If you start taking strokes faster all of a sudden, the strokes per minute rate will go up. Understand that strokes per minute on its own does not determine your pace per 500 or your watts. It doesn't determine your power in and of itself. It's just simply showing you how often you're taking rowing strokes, not telling you if those strokes are hard strokes or easy strokes. And below that, if you've got a Bluetooth heart rate monitor connected to your Aviron, you'll be able to see your heart rate in beats per minute here in the bottom right. I know that was a ton of information, but let's put all of that information into practice by doing a row together. All right, so now that we've got a basic idea of all of the different numbers and metrics that we can find on the metrics monitor, we're gonna do a 5-minute row together. And as we row, try to follow along with me. We'll be paying attention to different parts of the metric monitor. And at the end of the day, practice makes perfect. So if we wanna become more familiar, more comfortable with these numbers, we need to practice with them. So let's go ahead and strap ourselves in, and we're gonna start rowing together for 5 minutes, paying attention to one bit of the metrics monitor at a time. We'll be adjusting our resistance as we go throughout as well. Just do the best you can. There's nothing to track here. There's no good or bad. Just do what you can. So handles up, grip nice and wide, thumbs underneath the handles. Let's go ahead and start by pushing our legs, swinging back and pulling. Right now, just at resistance 1, and just getting ourselves into a nice, steady rhythm here. First number we're gonna look at together is our strokes and our strokes per minute. So towards the bottom right, on the right side of the metrics monitor, with the blue text, the dark blue text, our SPM, remember that's strokes per minute, how often we're taking our rowing strokes. We're gonna try to get that to 20 right here, 20. Remember, if you're trying to match me, meet me at the front of the stroke and jump back with me. Because we're all different heights and sizes. You can't stay perfectly in sync the entire time, but as long as we jump back together, we'll be right where we need to be. So we can see, holding the 20 strokes per minute, and every stroke we take, it's adding to our strokes total, the total number of strokes we've taken for the workout. That's our first minute in. Let's take a look here at the bottom middle of our screen, the pace, where we see our pace per 500 meter instantaneous on the left side, and then our average AVG pace per 500 meter. So we can see that that number, that's going to be different for each and every one of us, because that is showing us theoretically how fast our boat would be moving through the water and how quickly we're gaining meters based off of how hard we're rowing. So let's take 5 strokes together that are extra hard strokes. We'll do that on my call, but look at your pace per 500 right now, where it shows on the left side, the instantaneous. Now let's take our 5 hard strokes right here. 1, hard and a little faster. 2, watch your pace in the bottom left still. 3, 4, and 5. Now back to normal. Notice what that did to our pace per 500. The number got lower because the pace time got faster. We're covering 500 meters at a faster rate overall. But notice how it didn't have an overall effect on our average pace per 500 because we only did it for 5 strokes. All right, we're about halfway through our row here. Let's take a look at the very, very bottom of our screen, the resistance adjustments. Let's make a resistance adjustment here to resistance 5. So whether you use the arrow keys or on your handle or on the screen, go ahead and get it up to 5 resistance here. We're gonna try to keep our same 20 strokes per minute, but notice how that feels. Notice how the stroke feels a little heavier. We have to push a little harder with our legs. You might feel your heart rate start to go up a bit more. Can we keep the same 20 strokes per minute, but now go to resistance 10. Try it, resistance 10. And now keep that same 20 strokes per minute with me. Ooh. You can see how the resistance slowly climbs up, so it doesn't adjust instantly, but gradually. You can feel that challenge being added on. Let's try resistance 16 for fun. Hit 16. See how it slowly raises up, and feel, ooh, how heavy each stroke gets. 2 more. 1. Oh yeah. And 2. Nice. Back down to resistance 1. 1, 2, or 3. Something light. Notice how, again, it's gradual. Slowly lowers down. Each stroke slowly gets easier. If you had your heart rate monitor on, you can check your heart rate in the bottom right, the yellow text. Might have noticed it went up during those higher resistances. Now, just taking a note to our watts, our power on the top middle. Notice now that we've rode for a while, we can see a graph of how those watts change, and we can see how when we were at the higher resistances, the watts were higher as well because we were keeping the same stroke rate with more resistance. So notice how that changes, and for most workouts, your goal will be to keep your watts as steady and consistent as you can. But notice how, just like with pace, you have your current watts that it calculates each stroke, and your average. And that's our 5 minutes here. Let's take 2 more strokes and set our handles down here. That's 1 and 2. Handles down now. And now we can take a quick peek at the rest of our metrics before we wrap this up. So if we look in the top left, we can see our total meters. How many meters we accumulated over the course of those 5 minutes. And below that, we can see the different checkpoints for the first 500 meters, how long that took us, and our average pace per 500, and then how long it took us to hit the 1,000 meter mark. If you got to the 1,000 meter mark, I was able to pass it, but we're all different. If you didn't get to 1,000 meters, that's okay. You just didn't have as much power per stroke. And as you get fitter and stronger with rowing, you will get more meters per stroke. But our stroke rate alone doesn't mean we're all going to get the same meters. From there, we can look in the top right side. Pardon me. We can look in the top right side of the screen with our calories. We can see our calories burned, and then where we finished, our calories burned per hour. That burned per hour, as a reminder, is always changing based off of how hard the previous stroke that we took was. It's calculating out that average based off of our effort. And then from there, we can see our output in kilojoules as well. Once again, bringing it back to physics class, back to science class. Did you power up a light bulb for an hour? Probably not, because rowing power output is actually very inefficient when it comes to generating electricity, just like with cycling, like we talked about earlier. But that's a breakdown of the metrics monitor. While it might seem overwhelming at first, hopefully our little demo row made it a little bit more digestible, and over time, as you continue to work through follow-along workouts, the numbers will all make more sense over time. So just keep your mind open, keep learning, and always pay attention to how your metrics are changing, because knowledge is power, especially in rowing. We don't want to just let rowing happen to us. We want to be in control. But I hope you enjoyed this review through the metrics monitor. Get out there and crush your next row.